I can't remember the last time I felt this way about the death of someone that is not family. And while I don't agree with celebrating his death, I also think it's too simplistic to label those people as evil. The truth is, these people are not celebrating his death. They celebrate the end of someone they believe caused harm. Let's start with something simple. People don't just respond to facts, we respond to symbols, and our brains are wired this way. To a baby, mom is not just a person, she's food, safety, comfort, everything rolled into one. When we see scrubs, we think doctor or hospital. A wedding ring, we instantly connect it with love and commitment. Even a police siren, depending on who you are, might mean safety or it might mean trouble. We build these associations because the brain cannot handle processing every little thing from the scratch. So the brain uses shortcuts. Psychologists call them heuristics. And here's the key: these meanings don't disappear when someone dies. If a person is remembered as harmful, their death feels like the end of that harm. That's why people sometimes celebrate. It's not because they are excited about the death itself, but because death represents closure, justice. It represents relief. If you remember when Osama bin Laden was killed, people rushed into the streets, waving flags, cheering. They were not celebrating the idea of his death. So when people celebrate someone like Charlie Kirk dying, as painful as it is to me, I don't think they are celebrating death itself. Instead, I think they are reacting to what his absence means to them. To people who saw him as a symbol of hate, his death feels like relief.
It is a tragedy that Charlie Kirk was killed in that way. I feel for his widow and his children. They will have to live with that for the rest of their lives. But there is no legacy to honor. It was a legacy filled with bigotry, hatred, and white supremacy. And as a black woman and as a Muslim in this country, I refuse I refuse to join the chorus that changes the history of what is on the record from this man. And so, Nancy Mace, the president, like whatever, these crazy people can do whatever they want to do. Yeah. But I am not going to be bullied into complacency, into, dishonoring who I am and what I stand for just to, make them feel comfortable.
It's them saying, finally, this harmful person is gone. Of course, not everybody viewed Charlie Kirk the same way. To his supporters, he was a force for good, or at least for people like me, he was more good than bad. When you carry that perspective, seeing people celebrate his death feels inhumane. And this is where the real clash of perspectives begin. Side A says, he was evil. I'm glad he's gone. And side B says, he was good. How dare you celebrate? If you look closely, the argument isn't really about the act of celebration. The root of the conflict is deeper. It's about the definition of evil itself. Who defines evil? How do we define evil? Two groups can live in the same world, read the same news, watch the same events unfold, yet operate from completely different dictionaries of morality. And when the dictionary isn't the same, agreement is almost impossible. Let's take the example of the trans ideology. To one group, opposing trans rights is evil because they believe it directly contributes to the suffering and even deaths of trans youth. To them, speech against trans people is not just an opinion, it's harmful, it's violence, and therefore it's evil. To the other group, promoting trans ideology is evil in itself. They believe it leads to the mutilation of children, It robs them of their innocence, and it corrupts societal values. For them, supporting this ideology is evil. Both sides are completely convinced they are right and they protect the vulnerable. And this is the crux of the problem. Evil isn't an objective category that can be explained by laws of physics. It's a social construct shaped by so many things. It's shaped by our worldview, by religion, by culture and experience. What Group A calls justice, Group B calls oppression. What one person sees as freedom, another sees as societal decay. History is full of changing definitions of good and evil. What one era or one group celebrates, another condemns. This line is never fixed. If you take slavery, for most of human history, it was the norm. It was just part of daily life. It was in the law, it was in religion, ancient societies, and so many of the sacred texts. They reference slavery and they did not reference it with any outrage. To own another human being was simply just part of life. But today, slavery is universally condemned. The very same practice that was once considered natural is now remembered as a moral stain on human history. The same is true for the death penalty. Most ancient societies executed criminals. It was not immoral, it was just seen as justice. It was like a community event, like people came out to celebrate the death of criminals. It was more of a demonstration of order and of strength. But in the modern world, the death penalty itself is viewed as a barbaric way of justice. Again, what was once righteous is now seen as evil. It is not just practices that shift with perspectives, it's people as well. Leaders and public figures are remembered by different perspectives depending on who is telling the story. So, for example, we have a popular one, Joseph Stalin. He was celebrated by many people in the Soviet Union as a man that industrialized the nation and, of course, someone that defeated Hitler. But to many people inside and outside of the USSR, he was seen as a tyrant and he was responsible for the gulags and mass famine. When he died, there was a lot of people celebrating and millions mourning as well. We have another example of Adolf Hitler, adored by Nazi loyalists as Germany's savior. He was going to turn the country into the greatest country in the world. But to the rest of the world, they viewed him as evil itself. And when he died in 1945, there was a lot of celebration from people that didn't like him and saw him as the devil. Meanwhile, in his country, his loyalists were very sad. Again, we're talking about different perspectives. Now, Osama bin Laden, his followers saw him as a hero. He was fighting the West, he was fighting for their cause. And to the Westerners, this was a terrorist. Again, how do we judge if he was evil or not? It's just about the perspective. And if we go back to my country, Nigeria, we have Sani Abacha, viewed by his followers and his fans as a tough ruler helping to bring discipline to the country. But when he died, there was celebration. In fact, one of my earliest memories, just remembering people partying in the streets that Abacha was dead. Because from our perspective, he was oppressive. So, how do we judge who is evil and who isn't? There are so many other examples. We have a similar example for Margaret Thatcher and Idi Amin of Uganda. What this example show is that good and evil, they are rarely unanimous labels. Some of these figures, to some of the people in the countries, they represent stability, they represent strength. And for someone like Adolf Hitler, he represented salvation. But to others, they represent oppression and destruction. And death is simply something that amplifies the divide. While they were alive, these different opinions held between the different parties. And when they die, it just makes it worse. It just amplifies it because some people mourn and other people celebrate. This is a lesson that we learn from history. Morality is not only about the deeds themselves, it's about the perspective through which these deeds are judged. And as perspectives shift over time, so does the line between who is a hero and who becomes a villain, who is good and who is evil. So I don't think the real conversation is celebrating death wrong? Because it is not that simple. The better question is, why would someone like Charlie Kirk be defined as so evil that people not only accept his death, but actually celebrate it? What dictionary of morality was being used to reach that verdict? What lens are these people looking through to see him that way? If we don't ask those questions, we keep settling the wrong answers. And the worse, we risk letting definitions of evil shift with every election, every argument, and every cultural battle. That's how morality becomes so unstable that yesterday's hero becomes today's villain, and every death becomes an occasion for celebration, depending on whose side you are on. So, here's where I land. Celebrating death isn't inherently evil. It's human, it's symbolic, it's emotional. The real danger lies not in the celebrations themselves, but in the labels we attach to people while they are still alive. If we are too quick to brand someone as evil, or we are too quick to say they deserve to die, then we cheapen morality itself. And when morality gets so cheap that every rival becomes the devil, then every funeral turns into a festival of vengeance. And at that point, society loses the ability to distinguish between genuine justice and raw revenge. So maybe the real question isn't why are people celebrating? Maybe the real question is who do we truly believe deserves to die? So I will leave you guys to answer the question in the comments. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.